What up, boys? Wearing the sunglasses indoors today because I'm feeling a little bit spicy. Topic of today's video is going to be auto-regulation. Now, this is a pretty underrated topic when it comes to fitness, bodybuilding, powerlifting, whatever it may be, whichever sport you may be doing. And auto-regulation is basically just the ability to be able to make quick, split-second decisions during your training, one way or the other, right? And by that I mean going into a training session, right, and you feel like garbage. You feel tired, you feel lethargic, you have achy joints, and you feel fried, your grip's weak, you know what I'm saying? You kind of feel all of the symptoms of creeping and kind of compounding fatigue. During these times, most people want to do something like a deload, and that's typical amongst powerlifters, and it's advised for powerlifting because it's actually programmed into their training, and it's something that they account for, right? But if you're a bodybuilder, things get a little bit more tricky, and that's who this is mostly kind of geared towards. So if you're a bodybuilder like me, you are somebody who is an appreciator of the hypertrophies, and you're just here to get bigger primarily, and you don't really care too much about strength. Here's a pretty easy way to auto-regulate your training. Today, my workout, right, it was a leg day. I went in, I slept pretty good last night. I ate a good pre-workout meal, nice and, it was good for fuel. It was fantastic. I had my caffeine, I had everything. I went into the training session, and I felt tired, right? The pumps weren't hitting the way that they were supposed to, and in general, I just didn't feel very good. So what did I do? Did I just hammer through the workout and hit the weights that I was planning to that day, or was I smarter, right? I did, because what I do on my leg days, I open them with power shrugs, and then I go into, that day was going to be plat squats, right? I was fatigued, obviously, so what I did was an on-the-spot deload, because I was feeling aches and I was feeling pains during the movement, and again, the pumps just weren't hitting that well. And so I halved the volume. I still got in good quality volume and good quality sets through the main movements in that session, but I cut out all the fluff, right? And I cut out one of the other big ones to kind of lower the fatigue. Now what that did was allows me to fight to live another. It allows me to live to fight another day, and that's important because now, going to the next session, I'll be a lot more recovered without having to take an entire week either fully off or an entire week where I'm sandbagging my lifts, where I'm intentionally not going very hard to lower fatigue for an entire week. Deloads can be very derailing for hypertrophy. It's something where you come back after that deload and all of a sudden your ability to tolerate volume is gone. You're getting sore already, really bad again, like you're a newbie, and it takes you a week or two to catch up. And so it's not necessarily 1 week that you lose in that deload. You actually lose about, a week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks of quality hypertrophy style training when you could have just cut out some volume here and there as you went along and had the same level of recovery anyway. Does that make sense? It's auto-regulating, knowing when to drop the volume, when to drop the weight, when to put in a certain movement, do some rehab, do some shit like that to get ahead of the fatigue before it can actually get so bad that you actually need to take a week off. And this is, again, for bodybuilding. If you're a powerlifter, you can ignore this advice. It doesn't really matter. You have your own sport that's geared towards performance, and deloads are a part of that. But for bodybuilding, it isn't. You don't have to deload. The only people I really hear talking about stuff like this is natural hypertrophy and Joffrey Verity Schofield. But I really do think that this is a very valuable topic, and it's also a very valuable skill for people to learn. Auto-regulation, I think, is the biggest deciding factor between the people who are newer to lifting and the people who have been in it for years now, the more experienced lifter. And I think that's going to be the make or break factor as far as how big you get in the future and how smart your training gets. outside of just doing a deload. Because I think a deload is kind of like it's a little bit of a cop-out. Like, all right, well, I'll just take a week off. You know, I'll just fucking take an entire week where I just do really nothing with my lifts. The volume's half. I probably shouldn't even be bothered going, to be honest. And then spend the next week or two catching up. Like, or you can just get smarter and figure out when to swap out a movement, when to cut some volume here and there, and get ahead of the fatigue as you go. Like, I find that to be a lot more effective, and it's a lot more practical as far as bodybuilding goes. But that's my opinion. I mean, that's all for this video. I just kind of wanted to get that out there because I thought it was an interesting thing. You know, the workout didn't go too well, but I did handle it like a champ. Oh, one more thing. Now, if you are going into a session and you feel like shit, be honest with yourself. Don't get mad about it, right? Don't be like, oh, I can't believe, oh man, why do I feel so weak? Why do I feel so tired? I'm doing everything right. Be honest. What have you done for the past 2-3 weeks? What have you been doing? Right? Because in my case, I maxed out on bench the day prior. Not only did I max out on bench, I maxed out 3 times. And then I failed a 4th attempt. And then I also maxed out on my slingshot bench. Yeah, no shit, I'm going to be tired, right? Obviously, I'm going to be exhausted. My CNS is fried. So going into that session, I understood, like, yeah, well, I had this one coming. You know what I mean? And so you're going to have to kind of figure that out and sacrifice here and there to make up for anything like that if you do plan on doing things like that. And I also hit squat PRs the week prior, you know what I mean? And the squat is a very fatiguing movement. And so I completely understood why I was so tired and lethargic going to that session today. And yeah, that's about it for this video. Be smart about your fatigue management. Do it as you go along, and you won't need to do things like deloads, and you won't ever have to have a phase where you have to readapt and kind of do that back and forth thing, and it just makes your life a little simpler. Boy.